Well, I'm going to talk about sound money, but before I talk about sound money, I'm going to talk a little bit about unsound money. And when I say unsound money, what am I talking about? What I'm talking about are Federal Reserve notes. Those are the green bills that all of you right now have in your purses or in your wallets.
Not all of them.
That's right. About 2 years ago, I was at a political dinner, and at my table were all bankers. And I thought I'd do a little experiment. I asked the bankers, I said, what is money? Can you give me a definition of money? And the best comment I got, or the only comment I got, was, well, we do know that there's never enough to go around. So when I left the dinner that night, it was in a hotel, and I was driving out of the parking garage of the hotel, and the attendant at the ticket booth asked me, well, how'd your evening go? And I complained to him. I said, you know, I had a dinner with a bunch of bankers and no one could tell me what money was. And the parking lot attendant proceeded to tell me all about the Federal Reserve, how the Federal Reserve creates money, and what it's doing to our economy. And you can have his level of awareness too, but you're not going to get it from school. You're going to get it because you taught yourself about it. And I just might add that I make my living as an engineer, but I happen to have a MBA with a master's in finance, with a major in finance from one of the top finance schools in the country. And I didn't learn about the Federal Reserve when I was working on that master's degree. And I even went to my professor and spent an hour with her trying to figure out where money came from. And I never understood it until I did my own personal study 5 years later. Well, back in the Industrial Revolution, all of American industry was monopolized. And there was one monopoly that survived that time, because in 1890 we got the Sherman Antitrust Act, which tried to break up some of those monopolies. But the one monopoly that did survive is the Federal Reserve Bank. The Federal Reserve is a banking cartel. It has monopoly power granted to it by Congress to issue money. The Federal Reserve is a private corporation with stockholders, most of whom are private European banks. The Federal Reserve is a for-profit institution. It does not have your best interest in mind. It does not have America's best interest in mind. Its goal is to maximize its profits and maximize its power. And it's been doing plenty of that lately. And whenever it screws up really bad, it insists on more power. So where does money come from? Well, today, by way of the Federal Reserve System, money is loaned into existence. Let's say you're going to borrow money to build a house. If the bank agrees you're creditworthy, and they cut you a check for that loan, but the bank doesn't have the money it loans you. It creates the money on the spot. It creates the money out of thin air. The bank creates the money by writing the amount of money on the check, and then by making a bookkeeping entry in their journals that say you owe that money. It comes out of nowhere. The source of the money is not money the bank has on deposit. The source of the loan is your own creditworthiness. Like all debts, this money now requires an interest payment. And if the loan was for a house, you'll typically pay back about 3 times the amount of the loan. All the money that exists in America today has come into existence by this process. You probably thought money was an asset. In reality, in America, all money is debt. And if this is giving you a headache, I get a headache too when I think about it, because it's an unnatural type system. And since all money is debt, there is no money available to pay the interest on the debt that already exists. This is why we have downturns in the economy. They have programmed these downturns into our economy by the type of money system we use. Economic downturns and the bankruptcies that go with them are necessary to wipe out a certain amount of the debts and rebalance the amount of money in circulation so that the interest payments can be made. And when these downturns occur, the banking system takes more control of our nation's assets. This system is unsustainable. It makes it impossible that we could ever balance our budget at the federal level, because if we did balance our budget, the amount of debt was not expanding, our money system and our money supply would disappear. The end game of this unsound money system is that in time, the banks will own all the assets of the country. It is the same as when one wins in the game of Monopoly and wipes out everybody else. The Federal Reserve System is a dishonest money system. It is offensive to the scriptural principles that we have just weights and measures, which is mentioned in Scripture 4 times in Leviticus, Deuteronomy, Proverbs, and Micah. I think it's important that we have just weights and measures. So what shall we do? The first thing we can do is demand that the Federal Reserve Bank be audited by supporting Congressman Ron Paul's bill. Then, after that, through the audit, when all the ugly skeletons are exposed, we demand that the Federal Reserve Bank be abolished. In the meantime, we need to be thinking about sound money. So what is sound money? Sound money is money that has value in and of itself. There's no need to pass a law declaring sound money to be legal tender because people will naturally accept it on their own. Gold and silver are examples of sound money. There are others too. This year we'll have at least 2 bills in the legislature that will attempt to set up sound money for Idaho. I have authored one of those bills, and Representative Barrett has the other. My bill is last year's House Bill 259, and I'll mention just a couple of its highlights. My bill would take silver out of the ground in Idaho and use it to create a silver medallion that could be used for the payment of taxes. And in case you don't know, the Silver Valley in North Idaho is said to be the silver capital of the world. It has produced already 1 billion ounces of silver. But we can't actually take the silver out of the ground and turn it into a medallion all in Idaho, because right now, today, the silver ore coming out of Idaho to be smelted goes to Belgium, Finland, Mexico, Canada, Korea, and China. So my bill provides a tax incentive for someone to build a state-of-the-art facility in Idaho. I've been told by one of the silver mining companies in North Idaho, such a facility would lower the cost of production of our silver in Idaho and create between 400 to 800 jobs. All right. By using silver as a medium of exchange for the purpose of paying our taxes to the state, the funds that we might choose to put into silver would be protected from inflation. From 1792, when the first coinage act was passed by Congress, until 1913, we had 17% inflation over that 121-year period. That's about 0.1% per year. From 1913, when the Federal Reserve Act was passed, until today, the inflation's been 3,200%. That inflation represents a theft of the purchasing power of our money that you earned by the sweat of your brow. This theft is just another reason why it's time to abolish the Fed and transition into sound money. Well, I'm encouraged to see you out here today actually backing a legislative agenda. It's not enough to just say things are wrong and they need to be fixed. What you need to do is get behind the solutions. You've got to be at the table if you want to get what you want. And to that end, work for these legislative proposals that are being presented here. Lobby for them, come to the committee hearings and testify in favor of them. This rally is a good start, but you need to carry these bills on every step of the way. Thank you so much for being here.